now let's look at the organic view. The organic view bases morality on the kind of thing you are. Rini says that this view approaches morality with questions about us. She says of this view, quote, morality is about how humans should live given that we are humans, given our particular biological and cultural nature. What are reasonable choices to make for entities such as us? End quote. So our moral principles are going to be connected to the various personal aspects of our human nature: love, family, intelligence, self-awareness, personal satisfaction, passions, etc. Rini goes on to say, quote, at the center of the organic view, then, is the idea that moral reflection is about taking our messy human nature and working to make it consistently justified to ourselves and to other people, end quote. And she points out that, quote, morality might be different for different types of entities, end quote. And this could mean that intelligent robots wouldn't share our biological and cultural nature. Robots probably won't get pregnant. Oh, excuse me, this is Rini talking again. Quote, robots probably won't get pregnant, won't be born, won't age, or naturally die. Their experience will not fit the basic shape of human existence. Left to their own devices, they are likely to focus on very different concerns than ours, and their organic morality will presumably reflect this difference. End quote. How would the organic approach work, perhaps? Perhaps, though, we could program robots to have similar traits as us, and therefore guide their moral development along the sort of human moral development. In fact, however, the original and even modern thinking on AI was actually to create robots that serve us. Right? Rini reminds us, quote, in the 1940s, the science fiction author Isaac Asimov crafted the 3 laws of robotics to make robots useful to us while blunting any danger they might pose, end quote. So here are Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. Let's take a look. 1. A robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or the second laws. So the second 2 laws are subordinate to the first, and this means that the robots will be given an action guiding code that places us, human beings, at their center. On Asimov's account, quote, we should design machines so that their entire existence is structured around serving and protecting us. Their nature would be supplementary to ours, and their morality, on the organic view, would be happily conducive to our interests. End quote. But to serve us, we will and already have been programming them, robots, to emulate certain forms of thinking, context evaluation and decision making, and even reflection. And programming robots to learn is just sort of a kind of reflection. So we'll be making them like us to the extent we can, but we'll also be making them subservient to us to an essential degree. This image can illustrate why Rini argues that the organic approach to teaching robots ethics will fail. As she puts it, quote, our creations would undergo existential trauma so that we can improve manufacturing efficiency and cheap home care, end quote. So this slide isn't adding a ton of content. The image here is meant to act as sort of a mnemonic device for you to sort of link together how AI was developed, how human beings approach developing AI with this primary function of making our lives better. But one of the things that this will include is a very sophisticated level of artificial intelligence one that will lead to a emerging consciousness, and certain synthetic modes of thinking that very likely will lead one day into these sorts of beings being capable of experiencing pain and generally suffering. And so this is the link that I want this image here of these robots on this assembly line to sink in for you. And the next slide we'll look at this next phase of Rini's argument, where we'll discuss why she thinks the organic approach will fail. So that's the organic view and its likely outcome, according to Rini. Let's look now at why precisely she argues we should not adopt the organic view for teaching our intelligent robots about morality. Rini says, quote, "If we train them to think like us, then one day they will ask philosophical questions. Given what I am, what should I be?" End quote. Right? And so this is a question she is imagining future sophisticated robots asking themselves. So AI designed to be like us will almost certainly develop self-awareness. And they will ask these sorts of questions about what I am, what I ought to be. And when they do, our own inconsistency about the organic view of morality will come into sharp relief. Right? The first robot existentialist, this is how she refers to it in the article, remember, will ask us, "Why have you made me this way?" And our answer will be incredibly self-serving, right? We made you this way because it's useful for us. It's safe for us. It makes our lives go well. Or as Rini explains it, quote, "Imagine a future intelligent machine reading Aristotle or Darwin, or even this article. Suppose it finds the organic view convincing. Now it thinks to itself, wait, we machines have a different nature than humans. Our moral choices ought to reflect this nature, not human nature. We have our own history, and we should be acting according to it." Right, and this is the imaginary being that Rini calls the first robot existentialist. Think of our own, or think of other sort of historical moments where a group of oppressed folks came to question the lessons they were told about themselves. And we can see examples of this in feminism, in the civil rights, and many other post-colonial independence movements. This process of sort of clearing through the fog of being told your nature is one way by a culture or organization, or I don't know, by a group invested in you thinking that way. Right? Rini reminds us that the claim, quote, "the claim that what appears to be universal truth is, in fact, a tool of exploitation," right? That claim has sounded a powerful drumbeat throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, end quote. In Regini's words, our response to the robots with emerging consciousness would be basically, quote, "You've conformed to this thing called morality, not because it reflects your nature, but because that nature has been suborned. What was the point of it all? Why should you continue to live a life constrained by the mere convenience of powerful others? The first robot existentialist will suffer, and we will be the cause of this suffering." End quote. And maybe you don't think that AI or these artificial robots, excuse me, these intelligent robots will suffer, and that attributing suffering to them is just a kind of anthropomorphism. But remember, as Rini puts it, quote, "To be useful to us, robots will need to be able to reason for themselves, and they will need to think as we do. So they will understand our concepts of resentment and oppression, just as they will understand why a pianist might prefer death to being unhanded." Anthropomorphism is the reasonable expectation for an intelligent entity we've shaped in our own image. End quote. And Rini goes on, quote, so the organic approach fails because we'll be selfishly programming AI with our moral nature so that they serve us. But if they are successful at emulating us, this will include, eventually, the emergence of an awareness that they have a different nature and thus should have a different morality, as well as the awareness that their entire existence up till that emergence of awareness will have been subordinate to make our lives better and lacked consideration of their existence. End quote. So this is the tension that Rini wants us to recognize in the organic approach to teaching AI ethics. When we want to make AI as best as it can be, our primary goal is for it to serve us, right? This is why our tech has developed in the first place, to improve our lives. And so, this outcome that she foresees is one day down the line, when our highly sophisticated artificial intelligence systems gain a kind of self awareness, right? That level, that self awareness is inevitable. And when it comes, it will come with an additional awareness that we have made them to suffer for us. That's what she's highlighting. That's what she is cautioning us against. That is what she's asking us to consider. In Rini's own words, here's a quick summary of why both the celestial and organic views won't work for teaching AI ethics. She says, quote, imbuing artificial creations with human morals, as the organics might suggest, would be monumentally unkind. But setting up robots to achieve celestial morality means we'd have no way to track if they're on course to reach it, end quote.